All right, hi everybody, I'm Erin. It's so exciting to be here and to talk today about this path that I took and show you a little bit about how I got there and hopefully give you some practical tips. I tried to fit in as much as I could, so I apologize for all of the content that's gonna come at you right now. I couldn't resist. But first I wanted to start off and just mention that I wasn't the kind of kid that grew up being like, I wanna be the president of the United States or something like that. I never saw myself as a leader, didn't even really think about it. Super nerdy punk rock kid, very small rural town. I didn't really take that path. I was an English major, which yes, right? Which everyone was so eager to tell you didn't mean anything. So just didn't really see myself that way. But I always had a very do-it-yourself attitude and just could never resist challenging the status quo and pushing some buttons there, which I think came in handy in a lot of different ways, as I found out. And so just a little timeline so you can see here that it wasn't linear for me either, and my titles changed a lot, but the consistent thread was chasing the next challenge and being curious and pushing myself versus maybe what that exact title was. And of course, in our industry, titles change actually all the time. So you're not necessarily going to find that they stay in one place. So I started off as an early content practitioner at Razorfish when that content strategy practice was getting started, before there was even the notion of a smartphone. And then in that place, I pivoted into creative direction because that was really interesting to connect brand and content, because I think that's kind of the intersection of where we sit a lot of times. From there, moved to nonprofit marketing because I wanted to make more of an impact. And then I got burnt out and took a year to be an IC, and that was so much fun. I really loved it, and it really got me back on my feet, and I moved into head of content roles for the first time. Got into product design via Walmart, and that's where I made that switch officially into design leadership. And then today, leading up the global experience design team at McDonald's, which is so much fun, and I can't believe that I have this role. Everyone is so amazing. So it took me a while to get there, but these are the things that I felt like were the building blocks that took me to that place, and we'll go over them today. So first, that leading mindset, and then also the behaviors that are common that I've seen and observed, and some things that have worked for me. Your value drivers, what makes you stand out, and then how can you recognize those opportunities when you see them and just take advantage of those moments. So first, we'll start off with that leading mindset, because I think that's really where it starts. How you see yourself matters the most. So I'm gonna do a poll here as well. Who has ever felt typecast in their role as a content person? Yeah, right? You're like, I can do so much more, just let me, please. I felt that way as well, and when I went off seeking advice from executive creative director at the time, he actually told me, it was almost like he was confused I was asking. He said, Erin, you'll never be a designer. And what he really meant was, you won't be a designer, and that means you will never be leadership, because leadership is for designers. So it was a very demotivating moment for me, and honestly I was really pissed off as well, because it just felt like you're shutting a door on something without really being too curious about it. So I was venting to my mentor at the time, and he said, yeah, they're gonna never change their minds. They'll always see you that way until you show them differently. And that was eye-opening for me, because it made me think, like, yeah, that's right, I can't just sit here and wait for people to recognize that I have potential in that space. I have to figure out, like, what are those things that I can observe, that I can do, and how do I put that right in front of those people? And I did, and it really took that moment to turn that frustration into something that fueled me. So this first mindset shift is you're a leader first, content is second. So your function doesn't define you. And I actually borrowed this from the Executive Design Council, because they say the same thing to people who are already in design leadership roles, because there's some imposter syndrome there too. It's tough when you're a design leader in a room of people who have MBAs and to be taken seriously. So a way to get around that is to really get you into your mindset that I'm working on the skills of leadership, and I'm not gonna worry about how people are defining me. And you really just think, okay, I see myself that way, people will see it too. I'll act that way, I'll think that way. Next up, you probably can relate to this, of when you're in content, there's never enough of you. You can be a solo, you can be a team of two. We have small, mighty teams everywhere. And so you often find yourself the only content person on a project and on like maybe 5, 10 things at a time. And that made me feel a little bit like I was on the periphery versus like having the ownership that I really wanted, right? So what I did was, just showed up, did my job. I was a little frustrated, but really the thing that shifted for me was when I saw that like I was connecting the dots faster than my peers. I was learning a lot. And that was a huge, huge advantage. Also being in rooms invited to places where other designers weren't really getting that opportunity so soon, and putting me into spaces where I could influence, where I could meet executives and honestly find champions for my career. That was a really great place for me to show people those leadership skills that they said, hey, maybe you don't have that. So I really looked at that as an upside. And so that's another mindset shift, as that being different isn't that thing that limits you. It's actually a strength. And we heard some really great things about that today already. So in my example, I feel like my strength was being able to connect the dots. I'd seen what worked, I'd seen what didn't. I know what people care about. I was able to use all of that to form a really good perspective, and people would start coming to me for that perspective. So it really did have that power to accelerate me. But there's other differentiators that I find really common for content. So it could be your storytelling skills. We've heard some amazing stories today as well. You're able to take those really complex, knotty problems or topics, make it really simple, distill it into a story people can understand, and then someone can make a decision. And if you can help anybody make a decision in this world, like, you are on the right track. I will just say that. And the other is systems thinking. So this is another big one where we know all the things that are going to fall apart before other people seem to realize it, because we know how things are connected. We know how content doesn't just appear. It has to be created and managed, and all these things. So you're able to connect those dots. It's going to help you in the long run just protect products, make sure that you're scoping the right way, bringing in the right people at the right time. It's all that stuff of leadership, and you've probably been exposed to that all along the way. So next up, I would say this is, if I have any controversial take, it'd be this one, that we really need to be a little less precious just in design in general. And I want to give you a little bit of a cautionary tale, because what you want to be focused on is not being any design leader. You want to be focusing on being the next gen design leader. And so what has happened in the past is a lot of times people get into product and they put up a walled garden, or they do the agency within a company. And what that ends up doing is positioning design as a service, as just a thing you can get a project from. It puts your team in a really vulnerable position, to be honest. And that's something I think we all know today. Like, as a leader, you need to be 2 steps ahead of that, right? So design is not a service. Design is a key ingredient of any successful product or technology that you're making, because you're putting the users first. You're giving people the why. You're framing the problems. So the PSA here is, we don't say it's not our job. We don't have that attitude, because people will not come to you, and eventually they won't really think that your skills are valuable or your team is valuable. So we don't have to get rid of all of the darlings, but things like, workshop theatrics, tons of Post-it notes, design sprints that aren't really tied to any outcome. You're just doing them. You find yourself, like, that stuff can go. Like, there's a time and place, but we don't have to do it all the time. There we go. And so this thinking is, you've probably heard it before, but outcomes over outputs. And that's really a shift I'm seeing design leaders take, where we're talking in what's that impact that we're making, not that we delivered a thing or we delivered a thing on time. So what? That's great. That's kind of the job. But the outcomes that we're making and the stories that we tell about that, that's really the leadership voice that you begin to take. And so in our end, that doesn't mean always talking about the numbers, but that's super helpful. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it's connecting the dots between great customer outcomes lead to good business outcomes. When we are solving customers' problems, they are going to stay subscribed. They're going to buy the thing, right? And we're making their lives a little bit better. So we have to be relentlessly focused on that, outcomes over outputs mindset, and it just speak in that language that executives are really tuned to. So next up, I saw this and I was like, this is perfect. I'll use it someday, and then this is the day. So it might feel like there's a big wall between you and the next step, but I do promise you it's an illusion. That wall is only there in your mind, because this is not a bad time, even though it seems like doom and gloom, to pivot in your career. I think it's really the best time for somebody in the content space to take a wild swing, because we're at a sea change moment with design leadership. Like, you're seeing that shift to this outcomes mindset from design leadership, but we also have AI coming into the mix, and that's something that like we have to take seriously. It's here. We're exposed to it in a lot of different ways, but we can be the ones who have a point of view and sort of control like how we're using that as a tool. And we've seen before people who, when smartphones came out, Web 2.0, software as a service mindsets, thinking, people that really embraced that early were the ones that got that thought leadership, got that respect, and then honestly adapted faster. So they were able to keep the momentum in their careers. So I just want to really encourage everyone to think like you are here at the right time. Like, this is the right time to make a shift, and just make sure that we stay focused on AI being ethical and mutually beneficial for our end users and for businesses. And I think content, because we are so empathy driven, we're the best people to help steer the future of that. All right, next up, we're going to talk about leading behaviors. So the things that you can do that really make a difference. So first up, we're going to have to get kind of nerdy about it, but you got to know the business, and you have to know which results matter. So this is another maybe like peril of some design leaders, where they're like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. Like, that's for finance or product, or somebody else can worry about business. No, but we have to too, because we have to be going in the direction of the company and what they're trying to achieve, and have to be intelligent about it. And frankly, it comes off very out of tune to say to the people who are writing your budgets, like, oh, I don't know about that, or that's not my problem. So I encourage you all to get into it and be curious, and talk to finance, listen to earnings calls, hear what your CEO cares about, because that is really the lens that you can put on your own work. Like, we might not always be held accountable in the same ways. Like, you might not have a KPI that's exactly tied to your content work, but you can actually say, well, between these two good ideas, I can see how that one actually will contribute to this bigger goal that we have. And you tell those stories in that way, and it really begins to resonate with people. They're like, wow, like, those content designers, they get it, right? Or these designers, they are on it. And we really want to position ourselves that way, so that we are essential, we are valuable, and we're not being taken for granted. Next up, another behavior is knowing how things get done and influencing those people who have all the influence. So we heard about this today too, the politics of it all, and it's icky. It's like not my favorite thing, but it's so necessary, because every company has its own dysfunction, or something is going wrong, or they do it in a weird way. But things do get done, and you have to figure out how that happens. And maybe it's one executive greenlights things, but it's someone else who's really whispering in their ear, and you probably should go shop stuff around first with that person. There's different ways that maybe it's a function that has a little more sway in a business. Like, tech might be the voice in the room, or marketing might be the voice in the room that kind of has the final say. When you know that, then you can tailor your message to that audience and make things fit in really nicely. And it's just the work that you do so that your team can have their ambitions and their ideas see the light of day. So I really see it as sort of just charting that course, and then bringing people along with me and teaching them how they can navigate in the best way. And just you won't always agree with what you find. And there's a certain amount of change that you can make along the way. My approach is typically to be more subtle and change incrementally over time. I find I get a lot better reception to that. You just have to be a little patient, but you can't really make that change unless you acknowledge and are really transparent about what's happening. Next, make things happen, and please, dear God, keep it simple. But it's super easy for us to identify problems. It's super hard to find the time or have the desire, honestly, because we are all kind of doing a lot these days, to do something about those problems. But that really is, it's a great way to practice leadership is to take something that like it just will help so many people, it needs to get done, and you're the one who figures out to pull the people together to make it happen for the greater good of a team, of a product, whatever it might be. So the beauty though is it doesn't always have to be big stuff. Like it doesn't have to be a giant change of process or thing that you're introducing. It can start small. It can start with just helping people and helping people get their work done and making them successful. So asking somebody who seems to be struggling, like, hey, can I help you out? Like, you're gonna make a friend. When you do that, they'll be there for you later. But also, you're making things go. And you're going to start to be seen over time as that person who is dependable and just gets it and will be there when there's a really sticky problem. And until you're solving those sticky problems, you might not be able to take that center stage as quickly or as easily. So I think it's a practice. You don't have to overdo it, but just look for those opportunities. And you'll be top of mind next time a big challenge comes up. So this one is big for me. You cannot do this alone. To step into leadership, to go into brave leadership, it takes a lot out of you, and you need your circle around you. And so this industry is fantastic for finding connections and the people. I'm sure you all have lifelong friends that you've met along the way. And as you're transitioning from content to design, you might have gaps in your skills, and that's totally cool. Like, I did not know everything about leading a design team, particularly at the size of the design team that I lead now, but I have tons of people who've done it before, and I talk to them and I call them up and I ask for help. I help them out when they're like looking for a job or they're in a sticky situation, and it just really feels like I'm supported. And I think just you need to have that feeling for yourself. Otherwise, you are going to start feeling alone and the world's on your shoulders, and that's something that you want to avoid. Just another tip would be make sure some people in this circle are not people who you currently work with, because you're gonna need to vent and you're gonna need to laugh about some stuff. So find some people outside that circle too. Next up, this I love, your value drivers. So I like to talk about value drivers rather than a value prop, because you're not a product, you're not a service, and you are a person who has some passion and values. And that's really what you want to be thinking about for your message as a leader. And value drivers are things that motivate you. It's what great leaders look for. It's also what attracts talent to you as a leader. You'll start to find your team is amazing because they're values driven, you're values driven. It's why people will follow your lead, is because they believe you and they want the same things, or they're cool with the things that you want. And so, when I was reviewing portfolios this year, when I was hiring a bunch of leaders for my team, I didn't see a lot of that. And when people had it, it really stood out. So the only rule for this exercise is that you have to find that one thing that you want to change for the better. And it has to be very authentic to you. I'm going to show my example just so we can paint a picture. My why is to create positivity in the world by putting people and their needs first. Wow, do we need more positivity in the world? And I think we get that by caring for people, listening to them, and solving things big and small for them. And it just means a lot to me. So that's my why. And I found that by thinking about work I had done that had made an impact. It wasn't award-winning, but it just had an impact in the world, and I wanted to create more of it. So that's really how I got to that place. And I encourage you to put it down on paper and tell everybody about it. I also pulled up my top 3 values here, belonging, optimism, and courage. A little fun statement about it, but also what outcomes these things have. So belonging leads to innovation, optimism leads to adaptability, resilience, and courage is how we grow and how we innovate. And so I would love to see if other people create something like that. Please send it to me or tag me. I would love to see it, and steal any of my words too, because I would love for more of that in the world. All right, last section, opportunity spotting. So we got a lot going on. We're tapped, particularly content. You are tapped way too much. So you have to point your energy at what matters. And so I'm just going to give you some suggestions what has been effective for me. This is my top one, being the primary leader on content-focused design work. So you can do that, as a content designer. It's where you notice, hey, this work stream coming up has a lot to do with content. It's CMS related, or maybe it's conversational commerce or something, and just raise your hand. I do think you have to ask for it, and people won't necessarily think that you could be that leader. So just say, I'd be perfect for this. and see what happens. There's no harm in asking or trying. The trick is it should be full accountability. You're not in a support role. You're overseeing the work of designers, researchers, whoever else is participating in this. And in a perfect world, it's tied to a business metric that really makes a difference. And just starting small and then building a repertoire of this. This is honestly how I did it, was just getting in there and saying, hey, I want to do that work. And next is filling strategic leadership gaps, because there's never not a strategic leadership gap. People are always kind of running around being like, whoops, what are we going to do? So be that person who just tries to make sense of it and be that sense maker. You can do that by leading a design thinking sprint. If maybe there's a problem that needs to be framed better, or you need to come to a rapid solution. You can start authoring perspectives when your company has a massive gap in point of view. Then this one, we heard about this as well, but it's so important, facilitating maybe a work session to unblock a team. That is golden. If you can facilitate something and just make things go, you are gonna be a rock star. Also beginning to think in longer time horizons, so not planning just for the next quarter or what's right in front of you, but talking in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year horizons, what do we want to achieve, and having that vision forward language. Also, your influence, extending that outside of just the people in your tribe there, your ones nearest to you, because managers come and go, and teams and org structures change constantly. You cannot tie yourself to one structure or think it's going to be the same way in a year. You probably have all experienced this. So build that relationship now. It's going to help you out. I think being a conduit to brand and marketing is really common for content. So find those influencers, talk to them, have coffees. I spent a lot of time having coffees and one-on-ones and building that influence horizontally, supporting other leaders when they need it, and making sure that they know why I'm there, what I stand for, and always know that they can come to me as well. Making high-performing teams happen. So as you advance in your leadership, this is the thing that will be your constant, your team, and how you make them feel safe, how you build a culture, how you find what they need, and you give them those tools. So when all else fails and you've got a lot going on, just come back to this one, and you will be seen as a leader who cares and gets great results, because great results do come from happy and cared for teams. All right, one last thing. As you move into design leadership, for those of you who are looking to do that, and if you want to, you will, I know it, is to make sure that you bring others with you, because we don't do this alone. We reach back, we show others the way, and that's how I learned, and I've always tried to do that, and I really encourage us to just make this something that is open and no secrets. If you figure it out, tell somebody else. Well, thank you.